fame. If you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to? Long.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Boomer Pod podcast, where we interview movie and TV celebrities. Our guest today is writer, stunt performer, and actor Mike Scherer. Welcome, Mike, and thank you for being with us today on the Boomer Pod.
No worries. Good to be here.
Mike, tell me what other career paths did you try before you got into film?
I was in the military for a while. It's about it, really. I got into this quite young. I did do some flying for a while and did drive a truck off and on, but ever since I was in my early 20s, this is what I've done.
And what military branch were you in?
Canadian military infantry.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I did work in the marine industry when I was younger for my father. And
what did you do there?
I was a marine technician, engine builder.
Wow. And what made you decide to get involved in film?
I got hurt in the military. I came home, didn't quite know what to do with myself, and I sat down and I made a list of the things that I liked and that I was good at. Didn't really amount to too many career choices. There was a lot of crazy stuff in there. And this thing just popped into my head. There was an ad in the paper for a stunt school, which turned out to be a bit of a scam, but it steered me in the right direction. So that's how it started. And I got myself on a film. Director saw me, William Friedkin, the guy who did The Exorcist. Wow. I was just a background stunt guy, but he saw me and he had me brought up front. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I was getting fired. And he looked at me and he goes, "Can you go through that second floor window up there?" And it was my first job on a film, but I thought I should be honest. I looked at him and I said, "I don't think it's going to stop me." And he liked my answer. And he made me the bad guy for that scene. And I got 2 credits for my union card instead of 1. And it just went from there.
Let's talk about your career in writing, acting, and stunt performing. Yeah. How did the different roles come to you and in what sequence?
The writing, not so much. It's not really a factor. The acting it's a result of my looks, my appearance. I'm about 6.5 feet tall, built like a defensive end. And as you can see, I can look like a biker, even though I'm a very nice, but I've played a lot of bad guys. So the acting credits just started to pile up and quite a few roles. Acting is not my favorite thing, I have to say. Acting is quite difficult. I'd rather be on fire naked because people underestimate what it takes to be an actor on a film set. And I got interviewed once by an entertainment show. I was about to do some crazy car stunt in Israel, and they asked me what the most dangerous thing I'd ever done on camera was, and I said dialogue, and I wasn't kidding. I find acting frightening.
Really?
Yeah.
How much have you done?
Quite a bit. And actually, I'm starting next week on the new Twisted Metal TV series, and I'm playing a character. Yeah, there's a category called stunt actor where you're playing a role, but you're doing your own action. And it's a specific category that we have up here in Canada in our union, designed just for things like that.
Tell us about some of the memorable parts of your TV and movies. How about the record biopic Spinning Gold?
The only thing I did on that, we worked on that. We didn't even, to be honest with you, I wasn't sure the movie was going to come out. But all I did on that was drive a vehicle and I come to a stop and pick up the lead. Sometimes you can work on well-known films and do something not so well-known. The last well-known thing that I would have done would be I was driving Optimus Prime on the last Transformers movie. That would be fairly well-known.
Sure. And how about Moonfall with Halle Berry?
Yeah, Moonfall. I had a very interesting job on Moonfall. There's a scene where you see the space shuttle going through a kind of wrecked town. And there is a military truck pushing a 40-foot boat that's lying on its side in the road. And that's me driving that truck. And I'm trying to push this boat and I can't see where I'm going. I'm using little landmarks on the side of the road. Okay, there's that broken toilet. I got to start turning now. And yeah, it was tricky because they wanted me to just miss these actors and then drop the boat in some restaurant front window and then back up. And it was a trickier job than we thought it would be, but that's what I did on Moonfall.
And tell me about Halle Berry.
I didn't see too much of her on Moonfall. I did work with her quite a bit on one of the X-Men films, but there's not much to tell. They come in, they do their scene, they don't really hang around. And Moonfall we filmed during COVID, so COVID was a very hard time to make movies, I gotta say. The rules that we had to follow in terms of distancing and communicating with each other and lunch, and it was tough. So nobody had a lot of interaction with anyone during that time.
And you were a stunt coordinator on 2 X-Men films
Yeah, three actually, three, the last three.
with Jennifer Lawrence, McAvoy, and Jessica Chastain.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Those films were hard work. There's a lot of CGI, but there's a lot of practical work too. And these actors, you got to give them credit because we're flying them around on computerized winches. Some of them are going pretty high in the air. Some of them aren't that comfortable with heights, but they're working their way through it. It's a big ensemble cast, right? So you've got just as many primary stunt doubles as you do lead actors that you've got to corral, and there's a lot of logistics involved in a film like that. The Days of Future Past was really quite a film to work on. It did very well. That thing had I think it was a $250 million budget. It was heavy duty. It was big stuff. My wife actually played a character in that, a stunt actor. She's the one when you see Jennifer Lawrence jump out the window in Paris and she turns into a bystander. That's my wife that she turns into. So my wife does the stunts for the next little while and then she turns back into Jennifer Lawrence. So that was interesting. You know?
Now, who is your wife?
Her name's Charlene Francique. And we've been married 38 years. She's from Trinidad. She was our first Black stunt woman that we had available to us in the business up here. She's a very good driver. She's actually a bit of a demon in a car. And these days, just finding someone who can still drive stick is a novelty. And she was just in Toronto doing some four-wheel motorcycle stuff and our son, he works quite a lot in the business. He's about 6'9", and he's a stunt actor and he specializes in creature work and wire work and fighting. And I don't know if you're familiar with the new Star Trek series, The Strange New Worlds.
No, go ahead.
He plays the Gorn. He plays the new Gorn in the series, and he's been in some of the Discovery episodes, and he was called out for auditions for the Predator role. He's a very big, very nimble guy. He's got a very special place in the business.
And how long has he been doing this?
Our son, I'd say he's been around the business his whole life, but we didn't want to force him into it. Sometimes the children of stunt people, they start working awfully young. We wanted to be sure it was for him. He's not a maniac. Like, I'm not going to call myself a maniac, but he doesn't do the stuff that I do. He's a handsome guy. He looks like a big Jason Momoa. And he's more about fighting and combining with acting and doing creature work. He doesn't do any driving stuff or anything like that. Very good on wires. He does a lot of wire work.
Now, how do you enjoy coordinating?
Okay, so coordinating is a bit of a double-edged sword. Many of us become coordinators either because we want to or because we have to. Sometimes as you get older, your phone stops ringing as much as it used to. And the only option available to you in the business is to move up the ladder and go into coordinating. But it's not for everybody. And on the bigger shows like the X-Men, it can be quite a pressure cooker. It's surprising, but some of these bigger budget shows can actually feel disorganized at times, more so than a smaller film. And you really got to be on your toes when it comes, like I said, a big ensemble cast. If you have a scene with like 10 of these high-end actors and one of them for some reason can't show or whatever, schedule can change very It affects everybody down the line. Coordinating also has become, there's more to it than there used to be. You've got previs now. You have to be very good at basically filming the scene on your own to present your ideas. This now requires people who are very good at video editing and such. So the job has definitely grown. And I've been coordinating, I'd say, almost 25 of my almost 40 years. And I'm taking a break from it a little bit. It can be a little hard on the soul, sometimes.
So your main object right now is acting and stunt performing?
Yeah, I stick to driving now. I used to be an
Ah,
all stunt guy. Like I said, I'm fairly tall, but I moved well when I was young, and so I did everything that everybody else did, and it got me a lot of work. But I am in my 60s now. I stick to the vehicle stuff if I can. I still mix it up in fights and stuff. I've done a few fire burns in the last couple of years, but you have to be a little more selective at this age. Surely your brain tells you and your heart tells you you want to go out and do these things, but you got to be a little smart about it.
and how does your wife feel about that?
She's the same way. She's a little bit younger than me, but the stunt people running around, they're in their 20s and they're very bouncing around and all full of vim. And there's just some stuff that they're better cut out for. And it's hard to make that acceptance. You're almost like a professional athlete. You do have a shelf life.
Now, how many interviews have you done?
I'd say over the years, maybe a dozen. When you first contacted me, I told you it's not really my thing. I'm not shy or anything, but school stunt people, we tend to fly under the radar.
Have you ever done an interview with your wife and your son?
No, not all of us together. No.
Is there a reason for that?
No, no one's ever asked, and we don't. There's a couple of stunt families in the business, but I think we've only ever worked on the same project two or three times. We're all over the place. So we
Well,
did, we did work on a film together called Warm Bodies, like a zombie movie. And if I remember right, I think our son shot us. So we were zombies. He wasn't.
I'm a first, Mike. I'm asking if you would consider doing an interview down the road with your wife and your son.
Uh,
It doesn't have to be about a movie that you were in. It has
yeah.
to do with the interaction of how you work together as a family.
Yeah, sure. We'd be interested in that. It might be a little tough corralling us all together at the same time, but it's possible.
Okay, let's take a look at it. And I'll stay in touch with you about that.
All right.
What would you consider your greatest accomplishments?
You mean in terms of stunt work?
Yeah.
I would say on the last Triple X movie with Vin Diesel, I did a stunt on there. I actually got an award for it. And I did it with my buddy who I've known since my first days, Jamie Jones. And it was a very difficult car stunt where the two of us were flipping through the air together and we had to stay together. And we had to come up with a new way of doing this. And so when something's new, you have to test it and you got to work it out. And in the end, it came out just great. If you ever watch the film, there's a sequence where you see this yellow Econoline van in a car chase with a black SUV. So I'm driving the van and Jamie's in the black car. And when you see the stunt at the end of that's just the pipe ramp that I used had to be 9 feet high, which is really unheard of. That was quite huge. And the physics involved, our cars were actually tied together at one point. And if that system had failed, all the energy that I had built up to transfer into his vehicle would have stayed with me and I probably would have missed everything and landed in the lake. So there was so many things that we didn't know were going to happen and it worked out really well. So I would say out of all the things I've done, that is one. And then the other one was a Goodyear tire commercial I did a long time ago where I had to race a professional skier down a ski hill in a car. And that did me, I never had so much fun, but that was, I wish I could describe to you how we pulled this off. We didn't cheat. We used the tires. There was no spikes or chains. You can't do that in commercials. And the car was awesome. And yeah, I spent the whole week driving down Fortress Mountain in Calgary, and I was very proud of that one. It was just a commercial, but if people knew how hard it was and how rewarding it was to get through that. So I'd have to say that one is up there too.
And who won the race?
I think I did, but that's the commercial. In real life, the skier, his name was Rob Boyd. This guy, he's considered one of the crazy Canucks, and he thought I was nuts, but the feeling was mutual. I was watching this guy, and it was crazy what he was doing. He showed up one day and he installed a boat ski tow rope in the trunk of the car so that he didn't have to wait for me or ski up behind me. When they yelled action, I would start driving, and he was tow skiing behind the car like he was water skiing. And then when they yelled action, he would somehow, I watched him, I don't know how he did this, but he would whip himself past me, throw that thing in the trunk, close the trunk, take his ski poles and stuff. And I was just like watching this guy in complete awe. So yeah, it was quite something, I gotta say.
And how about life accomplishments, Mike?
I'd have to say the house I'm sitting in, I built myself. I pounded every nail. The banks, when you tell them what you do for a living, if you're a stunt person, they tend to frown upon that, and they're a little reluctant to lend you money for anything. So I found a way to raise enough money to pay for the materials. And yeah, I built myself a nice big house. So that was a bit my biggest life accomplishment. I'd say my son, the way he turned out, is another great accomplishment. And every time that I ever got injured bad enough that I wasn't sure I was going to come back, I went to school for something. So I went and got my pilot's license, my multi-engine pilot license. I thought maybe I could do that if I needed to. I did cooking school. I got my master scuba card, my dive master card. I took the opportunity every time I had downtime to learn something new, because stunt people don't have a shelf life. And if you don't, and you cannot trust this movie business for a constant stream of income. Last year was a perfect example when SAG went on strike. It didn't just affect SAG, it affected everybody. The crew people, they weren't on strike, but they weren't working either. A lot of below the line people struggled because that strike went on for 8 or 9 months. You need to have a plan B in the film business, especially stunt people. I tell that to any young stunt person that asks me for advice. I say, make sure you have a backup plan. Could be anything, but just make sure. Do not think that because you had one or two really well-paying jobs, that's going to be the norm for the rest of your career. It doesn't work out like that.
And do you consider that your greatest challenge?
Getting older in this business is a challenge. I'm a pretty accomplished woodworker. Some people call me a wood artist. I make custom items. Basically, I'm a spinner. Like I have my 12-acre forest back here, and I go hunting for a nice piece of wood, and I make bowls, and people like them and they buy them, and I make big toys and things like that. And anything somebody wants, I can make. And some of us do have a creative streak in us, but it gets buried because we're out there smashing stuff instead of making things. So, but does it generate an income for me? I'd have to take it more seriously if I wanted it to do that. But that is something that I do now.
Now, are you as proud of your wife as I'm sure she is of you?
Yeah, I am. But both of us are incredibly proud of our son, for not just for what he does, but how he carries himself. Every time he works, somebody texts me and tells me what a great guy he is. And that means the world to us because we've never heard a bad thing. And it tells us that we raised him right. And he goes out there and he represents all of us in the business. Doesn't generate gossip.
And where do you hope to be in the next 5 years, Mike?
I think I can carry on for another 5 years easily. I've had some surgeries and I'm waiting for a couple more repairs. Up here in Canada, the medical system is not what they would have you believe. So sometimes things take a while. But I think easily I can keep driving another 5 years. I thought about second unit directing, and I did do it off and on, but it just wasn't for me. A lot of stunt coordinators progress to that level. They become second unit directors, good ones. But I'm happy to just be in a vehicle. I have no debt. I saw to that. I was very good about paying off my debt. So yeah, and I can live off that and the royalties that I make and my wood items and things like that. But I turned 62 this year. Yeah, I think 5 more years would be about all I'm going to get out of it. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, exactly. Can you tell us about your heritage?
No, I was born in Germany, came over to Canada when I was pretty young. So my heritage is all Eastern European. Although Ancestry.com says I got 1% Indian in me. I don't know how that happened. It's in there. But generally, just the Eastern European region is where my heritage lies. My wife is Trinidadian. My son is a mix of both. But that's pretty much it.
And where were you born in Germany?
I was born in a town called Cologne, or Köln as it's pronounced. Oops. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Windows. Okay. Yeah, I was born in a town called Cologne and it's pronounced Köln in German. It's quite a big town. It's famous for it's got the biggest twin tower cathedral in Europe, I think. I don't know if it still holds that distinction, but it did when I was younger. So
How old were you when you left?
I was small. I was about 2 or 3. I do speak fluent German. I spoke it at home as a child, so you never lose that. And I pick up languages pretty quick. I've done films in Russia, and after about a month or two, I was getting around there pretty good. I speak fluent French. I have no choice. I live in Quebec. But yeah, I do speak 3 languages because of where I'm from.
You are an accomplished man, my friend,
Thank you.
without a doubt, without a doubt. And what about, you say you left Cologne when you were about 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3. Yeah. Came to Canada on a boat.
You know where I was when you were 4?
Where?
Stuttgart.
Oh, really?
But I was in the army.
Oh, okay.
That's how much older I am than you are.
Okay, you carry it.
I wish everybody thought that. And what can you tell us about your family other than your wife and your son?
Not too much. They're all scattered, or they were scattered around Germany. Most of them have passed away. My uncles and aunts. My mom, they grew up in war-torn Germany. One of her brothers got separated from them and wound up in East Germany for quite a long time until that went a different way. But like I said, my dad, he had his own engine company for many years, marine engine company, and that's where I worked. And for many years I was there, but then eventually I got into film. It's really not all that much to say, just standard family coming from another country and settling and doing okay. My dad was chief mechanic at Mercedes when he came to Canada.
Wow.
And then worked in the mines up in Labrador as a heavy equipment instructor. And I got my knowledge. I do a lot of truck stunts, and I got my knowledge for that because my dad sold trucks for Ford for a while, and he would bring them home every day. So, hey, let's go. So I learned at a young age how to operate heavy vehicles.
And how would you like Mike Scherer to be remembered?
Spent a lot of years involved with my union. It's not my favorite thing at times, but if the stunt community doesn't represent itself, nobody will. And we're a little misunderstood at times in our union. We're a very small percentage. Up here in Canada, we represent maybe 3 or 4% of our union membership, but we generate pound for pound more income than anybody. But sometimes we feel left behind because it's a numbers game. We don't have any kind of voting power. So for many years, I involved myself at these upper levels. I became a member of our national council. I used to sit on negotiating committees. I won't say against producers, they're not the devil. But I want to be remembered as somebody who tried to help outside of being on set, taking care of stuff offset. Sometimes stunt people have a lot of issues dealing with their medical insurance. So I used to help people out with that. Sometimes financial. So I just want to be remembered as somebody who took the time to help people out when they asked.
Your wife and your son are very lucky people. Do you know that?
Thank you, sir. I'm very
That's true.
kind.
That's true. You're an accomplished man, very accomplished. What have I missed, Mike? Anything that you'd like to mention or pitch?
Oh, I can't think of much else. It's all my life has ever been.
I hope that you'll join us in the future with any updates in your career and/or a joint interview with your wife and your son.
I'm sure they'd be very much into that.
That's
So
why I'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good.
Be well, Mike.
All right, same to
Thanks.
you.
And
Take
thank
care.
you for the interesting conversation.
Hey, you're very welcome. I enjoyed it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And you will be happy too.